Hey guys, I saw you getting into the book reading thing, and I really enjoyed watching it, and I kind of thought, I always feel guilty about this, because even though I used to pride myself on being a bit of an English lit sort of student, I was never actually much of a reader. But recently, I actually got one of my favorite books ever sent to me. And the thing is, I'm actually basically a very boring person. I read a lot of non-fiction. And one of my favorite books ever is this. It's 1066 and All That by W.C. Seller and R.J. Yeatman. This was actually written in 1930 by editors of the satirical magazine Punch, which is basically, it's like the Daily Show of the 1920s and 1930s. And I tell you, people were funnier back in those days, I think, than many people are today. It's basically a parody of an English school, grammar school history textbook from that time, and it's one of the best books ever in my mind. It's actually the only book I've ever read that I found so funny that I've actually had asthma attacks laughing while reading this. So I want to read you a bit from this. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to read it very well. I'm just doing this off the cuff. But I was reading it last night. This is so good. It's got various chapters of different parts of English history, and you kind of have to imagine an old-fashioned English school teacher teaching it. I will start reading. We'll see how far I can get within the allotted time frame on the period of Queen Victoria, which I think has a lot of actual good parallels for the current political situation. So here we go. Queen Victoria, a good queen. On the death of William IV, Queen Victoria, though asleep at the time, and thus in her nightdress, showed great devotion to duty by immediately ascending to the throne. In this bold act she was assisted by Lord Melbourne and the Archbishop of Canterbury, who were both properly dressed. Finding herself on the throne, Queen Victoria immediately announced her intention of being good, and plural, but not amused. This challenge was joyfully accepted by her subjects, and throughout her protracted reign, loyal and indefatigable attempts to amuse her were made by Her Majesty's eminently Victorian ministers and generals. Sub-chapter: Attempts to amuse Queen Victoria. One of the first of these attempts was Lord Melbourne's memorable political rule that it did not matter what the cabinet said so long as they all answered at once. This was called the collective responsibility of the cabinet. The Queen, however, was not amused. Next, Mr. Rowland Hill invented penny stamps. The Queen, however, without hesitation, knighted him. The loyal task, therefore, devolved on a more active group of men called the Chartists, who nearly succeeded by drawing an enormous chart. The Chartists, who nearly succeeded by drawing an enormous chart showing the position of affairs and signing it with imaginary names. This resulted in a succession of riots amongst the imaginary people, and necessitated the passing of the memorable Poor Law, which laid down that everybody in the country was poor, except the rich. These endeavours having failed, the Queen was allowed to abandon for the time being all thoughts of levity, and to marry her beautiful cousin, the memorable Prince Consort, a good German whom she had met during the great international expedition to Hyde Park. Sir Robert Repeal and potato duties in Ireland. About this time, the famous Tory statesman Sir Robert Repeal noticed that the Irish had had nothing to eat for some years, owing to the fact that the potatoes, which it was their duty to eat, had all gone bad. The Tory government were for long divided between two policies. One section insisting that the Irish ought to eat the potatoes, the other insisting that they need not. Sir Robert, however, boldly passed his famous Corn Laws, which abolished the duty and permitted the Irish to eat bread, thus disassociating himself from the Tories, who doggedly maintained that the Irish had only two alternatives, which were A, to eat the potatoes, and B, not to. Sir Robert, having thus destroyed his own party, bethought himself of the Queen and invented policemen. Her Majesty, however, was not amused. Okay, the last chapter I'm going to read you. This is one of my favourites ever. Fresh attempts to amuse the Queen. A wave of justifiable wars. Chapter 56. Owing to the inability of the Queen's ministers to amuse the Crown, superhuman attempts were now made by Her Majesty's generals at home and abroad to provide military diversions. These took the form of a wave of justifiable wars, including one, war with China, fought on moral grounds because the Chinese government were disposed to impede the importation of empire opium into China. The British thus became indispensable to the Chinese, and after several bloody engagements, Hong Kong, the best port of China, was ceded to the British throne. 2. War with Afghanistan. Owing to the size, direction, etc. of Russia, it was imperative that the king of Afghanistan, whose name was Just Muhammad, should sit on his throne in a friendly attitude. The king, however, Just declined to do this, and the British army was cut to pieces in the pepper passes to such an extent that Dr. Bridle rode half alive, or according to some historians half dead, into Jalalabad. After this, several bloody battles were fought, and the kings of Afghanistan were compelled to sit in a more friendly attitude. 3. The Sheikh War. Cause: death of Ranji Tinji, a huge sheikh. The sheikhs were very tall men on the frontier of India, who obscured the imperial outlook. A bloody strife ensued. Sir Hugh Golf annihilated the sheikhs, subsequently compelling them to present the Queen with a huge pencil called the Koh-i-Noor. The sheikhs were thus reduced in every way, and afterwards were on our side, and a good thing. 4. The Second Burmese War. Cause: there had only been one Burmese war. Burmese cut to pieces. Burma ceded to the Crown. Peace with Burma. 5. War against Abyssinia. Object: to release the Europeans in Abyssinia, all of whom had been incarcerated by the king, Theodore, who was a Christian and would not see their point of view. The war was divided into 2 parts. 1. Sir Robert Rapier demands release of the prisoners. Prisoners released. 2. War declared against Abyssinia. King Theodore blown up with Magnesia, the capital of Abyssinia. Theodore commits suicide, so Sir Robert becomes Lord Rapier of Magnesia. Peace with Abyssinia. 6. War against Ashanti. Coffee, king of Ashanti, worsted and burnt by Sir Garment Wolsey, becomes Viscount Coffee. Peace with the Shanti. 7. War against Zulus. Cause: the Zulus. Zulus exterminated. Peace with Zulus. All of these attempts having failed, news was brought to the Queen that the Fiji Islands were annexed to the British by the desire of the inhabitants. At this point, according to some seditious historians, Her Majesty's lip was observed to tremble. So, that's a sample. That went on for quite a while, actually, but that is my favourite chapter. And this is one of my favourite books ever. Again, it's nice. You have to know a bit of history, I guess, to understand all the references. I mean, every single line of this is quotable. And it really is hysterical. I love the list of wars. It sounds very familiar from recent times. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And, damn it, I've got to read some more. It looks like I've got to practice my reading too. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Peace.